G'day folks, Wren here, and it is time for my worst books of 2023. So it was a little bit difficult coming up with the 10 that I was like, yeah, they would be classed as the worst. Ooh, let's just get into it, shall we? So coming in at number 10 is Husky by Jessa Kane. I read this for the Thick Thighs Readathon, hosted by Sasha from Sasha Reads. This was just a really quick read. I think it was only like under 60 pages maybe. The thing about this was I was really enjoying the first half of it when it was about, you know, this guy and a girl, like obviously attracted to each other, but like not really doing anything. That tension was really, really good. And then they got together and it wasn't so good anymore. It got a little odd. I really don't know how to describe it without getting really in detail about all of it. It was mainly just all the sexual stuff that really grossed me out. There was some like really domineering stuff happening, which would usually be fine, but it was so out of character for this guy. You know, they're doing it in some very public places, when again, very out of character. Like, I'm usually fine for most of these kind of sexual escapades. Like, reading about them, it's usually fine. Unless it's out of character. Then it just grosses me out, and it just feels like two different people, and I don't want to read that. So coming in at number 9 is, unfortunately for Kirsty, which I'm really glad she's not here while I'm filming this, is Cat Gamer by Wataru Nadanti. So Cat Gamer made it to Kirsty's favourite of the year, and it's on my worst of the year. Yeah. I had such high hopes for Cat Gamer, and like I've gotten into cat manga this year, so I was like, you know, this is gonna be awesome, about, you know, this woman learning how to take care of a cat through gaming. I was like, that sounds awesome. But then I read it, and it didn't have that spark that I was looking for. Like, it had the whole, you know, gaming and a cat, but to me it didn't feel like it was connected enough for it to have that same kind of like magical vibe of taking care of a cat through the lessons you learned from gaming, you know? Oh, speaking of kitty, look at her. Kirsty and I have talked about this, and she thinks that maybe I didn't like it because I'm not as much of a gamer as she is, which very valid. That could definitely be the thing. I think I was just looking for something different from this. I don't know, it just didn't have the same kind of charm that I was looking for. I don't know, like the games didn't relate enough to the cat to make me go, oh my god, yeah. But this very much could have been a me thing. I was just kind of disappointed by it. I was bored. I was just like flipping through the pages to get to the end. I wasn't liking the female main character. I wasn't liking the cat main character. They were just there. It wasn't for me, and I'm a little upset about it. I might try and reread it in the future, but for now it's on the worst of the year. Coming in at number 8 is another manga, and this will be That Blue Sky Feeling by Okura. This is volumes 1 through 3, which is the entire collection. I hated this. And you're thinking, you know, if you didn't like it, why did you read the rest? I'm like, I read it to finish a series. It was only 3 volumes, and I was like, might as well suffer through it to finish a series, because maybe it gets better. It didn't. It really didn't. So That Blue Sky Feeling, it's about these 2 boys who become friends. They have a very much Grumpy Sunshine like trope going on. But the big thing, there were 2 big things. One, there was a lot of like fat shaming. Wasn't interested in that at all. But then the second massive thing, which like spoilers, you know, if you want to read this, skip ahead, this is spoilers. But our grumpy character, he had a relationship with this guy previously. They're no longer together, but that relationship, he's 16 or something. His ex-boyfriend is like 26. Yeah, that's what happened there. It's disgusting, really disgusting. And this older guy, he's still present throughout all 3 volumes, and he's still saying like, oh, isn't he so cute? Oh, he's just so cute. Oh, I used to love it when you did that. I'm like, that's disgusting. Because he doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. The fact that he dated a 16-year-old. It's disgusting. I get what they were trying to do. they were trying to have this guy be kind of like a queer mentor for the younger generation. I get what they were trying to do. It didn't come off like that, because this guy, he became very close friends with our grumpy character, and it was meant to be like he was helping this grumpy character come to terms with his own potential queer feelings and all this kind of thing. But he kept saying how cute this 16-year-old was. He invited this 16-year-old out for dinner, and then at the last minute decided, oh, let's not do that, let's go back to my apartment. No, no. Even though nothing happened, that is still so wrong. And I'm just like, don't do that. Don't invite a 16-year-old to your house when no one knows where they are. They have no chance to back out of this because they don't know the area that they're in. Like, you could see even the 16-year-old was a bit like, do I want to go into this person's house? And then the guy like convinces him to, and I was like, this is, it was so bad. So bad. Oh, I didn't like it. It was so gross. Yeah, that was kind of the main thing. Coming in at number 7 is Dreamy Tales by Tina Jean Cadman. This was a poetry collection that I read very recently. I read this for the Australian Readathon hosted by Mel from a book fiend named Mel. This was a poetry collection that was by a local author to me, which was super cool. I randomly found this book at like one of my favorite like new agey shops, and I immediately picked it up because there was a big moon on the cover. And ooh, I wish I liked this more because it's a local author, but oh no. The poetry was it was like what I was writing when I was like 14 to 16. You know, where like the end of each kind of line rhymed with like the one below it. So much rhyming. And like that was every poem. I think all but like 2 poems had the rhyming thing going. It got to a point where it was like the poem was formed around these words rhyming, and then the rest of it was just filled in to make those words make sense. It wasn't, I've written this poem and these words happen to rhyme. It was, you know, like it didn't flow. It got really repetitive after a while, and it didn't have none of the poems made me feel anything. I think there might have been one that was okay. And I feel so bad for this because it's a local author and I was so excited for it, and like I don't want to just say all these negative things about like an indie artist, but oh, it wasn't good. It really wasn't good. Coming in at number 6 is Awakened by Moni Boyce. I was so hyped for this, but this is kind of like the beginning of a fantasy series where this girl becomes aware of the fact that she has magical powers, and it turns out that like basically everyone in her life like isn't there because they like her. They're all just like her guardians. There was a really big missed opportunity with this whole everyone in my life has been lying to me my whole life. Our main character did not react as like explosively as she should have with that. I mean, if I found out that like my best friend and the cashier that I always see at my local shop, or like my next door neighbor, if they were all people that were there not because they wanted to get to know me, but if they were there purely because they were forced to be there, I would have some issues. I would have some things to say. And our main character didn't. She was just like, okay, like why are you not questioning everything in your life about this? It was such a missed opportunity. But the thing that I really didn't like about this was the love story. Because, of course, our main character falls for one of her guardians. She did have a crush on him beforehand, which helped me not feel about it. We're meant to believe that they had this whole tension building between them, but we don't see that. It was written off. It was like, oh, they trained together for several months and they had a lot of tension. That was what the author wrote. And then next we get when they finally get together. And I'm like, no, show me that tension. I want to see these two people in close quarters resisting the urge to tell the other how they feel. And I want to hear about how much their heart was racing when they were next to the other person. Like, give me that tension. Don't just write it off. So, like, that was a huge thing that I was like, ugh, that sucks. So I already wasn't invested in this relationship. And then our main female character, she got injured, right? And she's like nearly on death's door. And as she's recovering, the love interest like doesn't come to see her at all. And then when he does, they have sex. Like, what? It was, oh, it was so bad. So bad. That sex scene was really not great because there was a whole bunch of dirty talk where I was like, what? Where did this come from? Because like it did not fit with his character and what we had seen from him previously, and then he just goes on and saying this kind of stuff. I was like, excuse me. I think it wasn't well written, like at all, which sucks because I was really hyped for it, but it just like fell into a bunch of tropes and they weren't tropes for me. So coming in at number 5 is Pinky and Peppa Forever by Eddie Adams. I read this for Sufferathon hosted by Paige from Pages with Paige, and like it makes sense that this is one of my worst books of the year because the prompt I had to read this for was a book similar to your lowest rated book of the past 2 years. My lowest rated book was Lady Justice, which was a comic. So I read this because it was another comic, and oh boy, do I wish I hadn't. It was weird. Like, not even a good weird, it was just weird. I really didn't like the art style. Like, you can see from the cover, that's the art style. It really looks juvenile. The color scheme was also very odd. There was a bunch of colors on every page, and I was like, okay, those fit together, maybe. Then there was just the story. So this was queer, which, you know, yay, but it was like these two girls, which, by the way, they're both like furries. They're like humanoid dogs. We won't get into that, okay? I think they're both artists and they're trying to like one-up each other, and they had like this big fight or something, and then one of them decides to do this art exhibition and, you know, goes really all out for it, but she ends up taking her own life for the show, and it's part of the exhibition. And so then she goes to hell. Her girlfriend ends up like joining her in hell or something, or she comes back for her girlfriend and convinces the girlfriend to like also be dead, something like that. So then they're both like in hell together, and they're all still very toxic towards each other. I have no idea what was going on. It felt like an acid dream without ever having taken acid. It was weird. And like, I usually love weird. This was the bad kind of weird. This was the kind of weird where it's like, did the author know what they were doing? I don't think so. Coming in at number 4 is Sorry Bro by Talene Vashkuni. This was very upsetting because I really wanted to like this book. It's about this Armenian woman who is kind of trying to reconnect with her culture, but she's really just trying to figure out what she wants to do in life because she recently broke up with her boyfriend, and she's just trying to figure herself out. So she goes to this like kind of Armenian event that's happening in her town, and she meets this woman who's kind of hosting it, I think, and they form a really good friendship, which turns into something more, which, awesome. The thing I hated about this was there is no way that one of these main characters actually liked the other, because she was awful. I have been blessed. Hello, you just gonna stay here while I keep going? Is that what you're gonna do? Okay, we're gonna keep going with the kitty on my lap. Anyways, so our main character was kind of an awful person, not gonna lie. She was constantly lying about everything. She was also just kind of an awful person. Like, there's no way that the love interest could actually like her, because the love interest was like this pure-hearted person and had so many amazing qualities to her, but our main character did not have any of those. So it's like, how do you like this person? And that was kind of a consensus with everyone that read this. It was like, there's no way that in real life these two people would be together. It was not a believable romance at all, and the main character was kind of awful. Like, there was also this scene where she kind of got outed, and instead of, I don't know, anything, she decided to say that her girlfriend seduced her and forced herself on her. Yeah. So that's why this is in the worst of the year, because that is disgusting. That is horrible. And then the woman took her back. How? Why would you take someone back that does that? Like, I understand that she had a bit of like a panic because she was outed, and like that is kind of understandable. But then, like, to throw your girlfriend under the bus like that, no. It sucked. It was awful. There was no redeeming qualities to this book at all, and I can't believe I actually finished it. I really should have DNF'd it, because, like, it was that bad. Coming in at number 3 is Don't Call Me Dirty by Guru Kambi. This was a manga that I was really excited for because it is a queer manga, but oh boy, was it not good. So this was about this young man kind of helping a homeless man. That's kind of all I can really say of what it's about. It was weird. This homeless man keeps getting called dirty the whole time, and our main character, who is queer, like, associates dirty with like a queer slur, so he gets really kind of weird around that, and he tries not to get too close to the homeless man because, you know, obviously there are some feelings developing. But it was just, it felt, oh, you found a little way to get through. Did you? Neil, good girl. The whole thing felt very homophobic, and it was just, I think our main character definitely had some internalized homophobia. I don't know. Basically, the whole thing made me feel really, really uncomfortable because it was just full of like internalized homophobia, and also this whole notion that, like, oh, you can't touch a homeless person because then you'll get dirty. It made me feel really uncomfortable, like, about everything. And like, that's not what I want to feel when reading manga, you know? Coming in at number 2 is Horror Hotel by Victoria Fulton and someone else, I think. This was a complete shit show, basically. I hate read this, which is the only reason it's number 2 instead of number 1, because I had a fun experience reading it. Basically, after like every chapter, I would put it down and then just like moan to Max about how awful that chapter was. So it was a very fun experience, but awful book. Absolutely awful. It has one of my favorite like tropes, which is like paranormal investigation. My favorite, I love it. But this was so bad. So this is about this kind of like paranormal hunting team of teenagers, and they go to this hotel. You know, stuff starts happening, people start dying as well, and it's just, oh, it's not good. So the one huge thing that made this awful was that it was basically a complete rip-off of the Cecil Hotel. It's a hotel in America where this woman, I've forgotten her first name, which is awful. She died at the hotel, and because there was a lot of like CCTV footage of her last night there, everyone has kind of turned it into this paranormal event, because at some points it looks like she's talking to no one, so everyone's like, oh, you know, what's going on? It felt so disrespectful because of how this book treated it. It was so bad. And even at the beginning, it says, like, it has some kind of like acknowledgement to like the woman and her family, but like, it really is just that exact thing. Like, they didn't come up with anything new, they did that exact thing. Something about this just felt very disrespectful, and I think maybe because it was so recent, I mean recent as in like over 10 years ago, you know, like, her family is still very much around. Their whole life has been revolving around this woman's death, and like, they don't want to keep constantly having to be reminded of it, so stop bringing it up, kind of thing, you know? But apart from that feeling very disrespectful, it was also just bad writing. These teenagers are absolute idiots because there would be some people got murdered while they were there, and they see this body, and their first thought is, we should move the body so no one finds it first. What? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, so they've just put like their fingerprints on the body, and their DNA is now all over everything. They are now criminals because they have tampered with a crime scene. And moved a body? Like, what the hell? It was so stupid. No teenager is that stupid. The whole time I'm reading this, I'm just like shaking my head going, this is stupid. That's stupid. Idiotic. I was like bored reading it because it was so bad. At like the last minute, there decided to be like some love story things going on. And I was like, no, that's not what this book is about. It felt very, very like pieced together. Like the flow didn't flow, basically. It was like, oh, let's put this in there and we'll kind of work stuff around it. Oh, what about this and this and this? They were just like throwing ideas at a board and hoping it all fit together, which it didn't. Then coming in at number 1, my very worst book of the year is The Vegetarian by Han Kung. This was weird and not in a good way. It's about this one woman who is mentally ill, but no one seems to care about that. The first bit, I think, was her and her husband. Basically, the entire book is filled with sexual assault, and no one seems to care. Ooh, it made me so rageful. This poor woman, not only is she constantly sexually assaulted, she's also just, like, she's very much succumbing to her mental illness, but no one cares. And, like, she is suffering, and no one cares. So it's like her and her husband, she starts not eating meat, and then like her thoughts kind of like spiral and spiral and spiral, and then her husband assaults her. I think he does it a few times too. Then her brother-in-law is like coming around to her place because he's like an artist or something, and she has a particular birthmark that he's really interested in. So he gets her to like sit naked while he like photographs her and that kind of stuff, and like he paints a bunch of like flowers on her. It like starts off as being just artistic, but then he gets way too into it, way too into it, and assaults her several times. And no one cares. Again, no one cares. And then I think in the last bit, she's finally at a hospital, I think, and like her sister comes around, and it's still, no one cares what has happened to her. No one cares about her illness. No one cares about the fact that she was constantly assaulted. And they're all just like, oh, she's a bit weird, let's just forget about her. And I was like, no, she needs help. Someone help her. And no one does. It's almost really sad reading it, because you just want someone to care about this woman and care about what she's going through, but no one ever does, and it's awful. The depiction of a decline in mental health was kind of interesting, and the way this woman thinks about herself and the world is very odd, but that could very much be part of her mental illness. But ooh, some of the things she was talking about were weird as anything, because ooh, there was talk about opening her legs and letting flowers grow out of her. You know? Like, it was all kinds of messed up. Like, she wanted to be planted, and it was weird. And not in a cool kind of weird, in a kind of creepy kind of weird, but not the good kind of creepy. There are many different layers to weird, and this was just weird, and way too much sexual assault for my liking when it was never addressed. Like, oh my god, this poor woman, oh my god, and no one cared. Like, maybe I'm not getting it, but also don't sexually assault people constantly. But anyways, yeah, that thank you, Ginty, thank you so much. That is going to be my worst books of the year. I hope you enjoyed. I now have a cattail in my face. Yeah, let me know what some of your worst books were, and did you read any of these? Because if you did and enjoyed them, why? Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye. Oh yeah, now you stop.